This is a continuance of the discussion that Rooftop Eagle and myself are having in regards to faith, God, and organized religion. Now, you specifically asked about the first thing. I'll just sort of do these in order. Again, this is going to be just another part of it, and you'll have to forgive me. I'm not going to be able to answer every single one of your questions from the last video in a single part. What I would like to start with, and that you went back to, would bring us to, you asked about the 1850s, and I believe you're referring to the rapture, and it was, and it sort of spawned a new interpretation that hadn't been done before. What you're looking for is actually John Darby in the 1830s, or it was like right at 1830. Now, historically, I want to say it's been a while since I've studied this, but John Darby actually wasn't the person who came up with this idea. The person who came up with this idea was a female. I can't remember what her name was, but she was actually a female, claimed to be a prophetess around that time. Now, you asked what changed in the 1830s and the mid 19th century. There was because you're coming off, it's not the Protestant movement so much. It's almost like a resurgence of a Gnostic movement. That's Gnostic spelled with a Gnostic. Now, what a Gnostic approach to faith is it opens up a lot of room for interpretation, and that's where you get people take scripture and they make some sort of spiritual sense, and more or less you get a leader of a congregation saying that what a scripture means, and it tends to serve their ends. So there was almost a resurgence in the Gnostic approaches to Bible interpretation. Now, naturally, you've always had people that mix the literal with the allegorical with the prophecy of the Bible. The interesting thing about the Bible, and it's, in my experience, it's somewhat unique in this. Now, me personally, I want to give you some background on myself. Now, you talked about the dark corners of the library. I don't know if you necessarily mean like the history surrounding the Holy Roman Catholic Church, but I'm going to assume that you mean texts such as the Quran or the Book of Mormon or the Watchtower stuff. I've read large portions of the Quran, and I've read the Book of Mormon. The thing that I've found that's different in the Bible as it was put together, I want to say, what is that, the Tungstol Bible, the one that just predated the King James Version, which the King James Version was a, man, it's been so long since I've looked into this. That was, oh man. Anyway, it's more or less the same thing, and they are assembled works of the most duplicated and highest regarded scrolls of the faith. And the idea is they also all coincide with one another. Like, it doesn't contradict itself. But there's a couple things on that I myself have questions with. But we'll go ahead and get into that later. So I noticed you know, while we're on the subject of that, you talked about the scripture in Romans where it talks about honoring the king. There is assorted places in the Bible, and it is the King James Version, and it's a little suspect because, you know, hey, this king mandated the assembly of all these texts, right? So naturally, when something says, you know, honor the king, you know, do what the authorities say because they're appointed by God, naturally we're suspicious of, you know, where do they come off? I mean, that seems a little what's the word I'm looking for? It seems a little ulterior motive, like, oh yeah, go figure. But the in other places, the Bible talks about how the authorities are used in a way by God to punish evildoers and to do various tasks. Just sort of keep order upon the earth, as it's the whole design is to keep order. I mean, we function better when we are working together. I assume that's what you mean by the different corners. Now I want to go ahead and touch on organized religion here real quick, just so we're clear on it. I'm thinking of the earliest examples of righteous men in the Bible, like historically, chronologically. Abel, I want to say, was a righteous person. Like his sacrifice to God was more righteous than his brother, and then Cain killed him because his offering to God was not. And you ask yourself, well, I ask myself, what made one offering different than the other? Well, Abel's offering was the finest livestock of his flock. I want to say it was sheep, but it really could be anything. I want to say it was sheep. I don't think it was goats. And it was like the first offspring, just the finest cut of what it is he was making, he burned an offering to God. Whereas Cain was a man of the fields, and his offering to God was I want to say some of the vegetables from his field. I'm paraphrasing here. Please forgive me. But the idea behind one offering being more righteous than the other was because the sacrifice was greater from Abel. Now, I probably got some people that just launched into outer space, but there's a lot more to that, and in order to do that, there needs to be an understanding of the nature of God. Now, I think when you get more and more an understanding of the nature of God, you can see when certain behaviors are going the wrong way. We'll again talk about religion. And let's talk about a person who's newly saved, okay? You will see, a person who's newly saved, as in they just recently claimed faith in Jesus Christ, got dunked in a bunch of water, and they're going to run around and save the world. Talking about how you're going to die and this and that and the other thing. Well, a person's natural behavior is of a self-righteous nature. Our default position is the things that I'm doing are fine, and the things that go on around me that I oppose are wrong. The problem with a newly saved person is there's nothing about the character that they've just put on that's any different than what their former nature is. It merely gave them a vehicle to even be like, oh, and I got God on my side too, because I have his righteousness. So you go from being self-righteous to being, righteous by God. So there's a lot of room for an issue there. So we'll go ahead and we'll leave it there for now before we get going too nutso. If you want to discuss more about the stuff that happened with the Protestants in the mid-19th century, I'd be more than happy to. It's been a long time since I've done divinity study, but if you'll bear with me, I'll try. All right, thanks a bunch. We'll talk to y'all later.